Hello everyone, happy new year. We call an end to 2021 and we are calling in 2022. So let's get clear on what our intentions are. I want to start off by saying something that many of us have come to realize. As always, perception is really what holds the power over truth. Truth is not as important as how one's perception is. Perception is what shapes our reality. And I think what many of us have come to realize is that there's many people in our lives, many people in the country and around the world, who would prefer to stay in an inaccurate, unfair, untrue perception than actually communicate and be open-minded for truth. And that is frustrating. That is really frustrating on a personal level and on a global level. And I think that is why I've been honored as I've been called America's relationship and dating authority. As not only am I a licensed psychotherapist, but I've seen it all and been through it myself and have pulled from so many hats of experiences to bring today, with today's headlines and conversations, what patterns and limiting beliefs perpetuate in our personal relationships as well as our nation and world at large. And it does seem so personal today. No one likes being misunderstood, unfairly judged, unfairly portrayed. It can be very triggering. And I am not a master at it myself. That's why I'm the authority, not the expert. Because this is difficult. It's a journey. And just like with every journey, there's going to be some huge wins, huge achievements, accomplishments, high fives, I like to call them. But there's also going to be pitbacks. You know, you can make 5 steps ahead and then you can take a few steps back. What I want to do now, and what I encourage you all to do, is take inventory of this last year. The good, the bad, and the amazing. The good, the bad, and the ugly. As hard as 2021 was in terms of standing up for our liberties and seeing our country fall apart from within, it's been an amazing year for me in other ways I couldn't dream of. And I'll just name a few. This time last year, I was, what Trump has awakened in many of us, say what you will about him, is this patriotism, a love of our country and a love of our freedoms. I would not identify myself as a traditional Republican. Up until quite recently, I'm always a registered independent, but I tend to vote liberal. What I've seen in the last several years has awoken me and taken me to levels I never could have imagined, as I have become a huge advocate for the freethinker and the critical thinker, as that is really the only way to full potential in life and love. When you can look at things clearly, ask questions, even if it's difficult, even if there's some cognitive dissonance. It's about opportunities for us to take personal responsibility and grow. And that requires us to get out of our comfort zones. So some of the wins I want to share with you personally. I'm lucky enough to call some of the people I most admire today in terms of their free thinking, their articulation, their influence, their intelligence. I'm blessed to actually know personally and hang out with sometimes. Between Dennis Prager, Larry Elder, John Voight, Jeremy Boring, and so many other amazing, amazing people I've been blessed to know this year. I just want to tell you guys, when you start showing up and doing what is alive for you, things fall into alignment. I didn't go into this world of advocacy because I knew what my end result was going to be. I did it because it feels alive to me. As any psychotherapist would agree, we try to get our clients, if you're doing your job correctly, your job is to get your clients back into full potential in life and love. If you're working with a client who is not free to do so, if they are trapped in a toxic relationship, if there's an addiction, if there's other elements stifling their freedom of actualization, how helpful can you be? So take this back to a national perspective. If our country is not free with basic human rights of speech, of religion, the ability to govern our own risk assessment to what goes into our bodies, to be able to take agency over our God-given human rights with what the Constitution has sought to protect, then who are we as a nation? And this is why for so many of us, not just nationally, but globally, we're standing up. We are holding the line. And a buck stops with our children. So I'm very proud to say that since June, where I've shifted the majority of my focus to advocacy in LA and California, because someone has to keep fighting, and I'm standing with so many other mama bears and papa bears and concerned citizens who are on the front lines, like Normandy. We are the front line. We are the frontline warriors to standing up for our liberties and defending our liberties. And we've had some great wins. As many of you would recall, in June, we were able to pass a resolution through the LAUSD School Board and LA City Council at large, standing up for anti-Semitism. And then later in September, we were able to do something that seemed almost impossible, to get the tyrannical teachers union to back off a pro-BDS motion that would have introduced in a horrible anti-Israel agenda to the second largest school district in the country. And it only took a handful of teachers to create this, but it was the teachers' votes that we needed to shut this down. And majority, when I say majority, a good 85% of teachers don't even vote for these things. But it took we the people and a grassroots effect with some other great organizations to turn that around. When we see across the nation, in Virginia, with parents and citizens standing up against mainstream media, when idiot Terry McAuliffe says parents have no right influencing children's education. No. CRT is a real thing. Forcing a vaccination into a population of children who is not at risk is a real thing. And many of us are not going to stand for it. Working for the Larry Elder campaign and seeing firsthand how a man like Larry Elder was marketed as the black face of white supremacy instead of American success story from South Central, America, Hollywood, we have a problem. As a result of working with the Larry Elder campaign, I created a very private and vetted network for Hollywood industry professionals that started with over 7 members, and we are now 200 strong, growing, collaborating, taking back the narrative and fighting the culture war on what a free thinker actually is. We have no choice. We have no choice. We have to be able to do our part so we can sleep at night knowing that we are doing what we can for our children's future. It is not easy. And we cannot afford to die on every hill. And it's very important that we find balance, especially if many of us are parents. The true crisis today for our children is the mental health crisis. I don't need to tell you as parents what our children have endured being, especially in California and Los Angeles, isolated in lockdowns from social interaction, from sports activities, from a myriad of things that would be in the best interest for their mental, emotional, and physical development. The fact that suicide is the second highest cause of death in children and adults, mainly among teenager girls, is devastating, to say the least. Not to mention the vilification of children who are not vaccinated and are made to feel ostracized by their peers, by their teachers. What happened to our country? What happened to our country? But you don't want to get stuck with that, because it was our forefathers who themselves saw a vision of inspiration of what life could be when we have agency. Again, when we have freedom to choose, freedom to be all that we can be. America is still the greatest country in this world, although many of the media and Hollywood and big tech would have you think differently. It is not a perfect country. Of course there's flaws, just like with any relationship, just like with every family. But you do not throw the baby out with the bathwater. Our country in the last year has been falling apart from within. And the distraction of this COVID crisis to take us away from the real issues at hand, the border crisis, the supply chain shortage, CRT, the culture wars, the rise in anti-racism to combat racism has only contributed to more racism. We didn't have these issues growing up. You can look at the polls of all different minorities and backgrounds. We all watched The Cosby Show. We all watched Fresh Prince of Bel-Air and Family Matters. We were raised to see Americans and treat people by the content of their character, not by the color of their skin. And we are going so backwards. Reverse racism, reverse segregation. Never a good thing. What you focus on expands. So there's many, many things I am proud of that I have been able to be a part of and to have personal collaborations with some of my greatest heroes today. And I know there is more yet to come. So what I'm going to do, the other thing I wanted to say is, I'm going through a lot of personal stuff too. Nothing is perfect in anyone's life. And I pay attention to it. And there's some particular family members in my life where I feel so misunderstood by, so unfairly judged by, but I'm denied a chance to communicate with them. And that, as a psychotherapist, has to be the most torturous of all, because I fundamentally believe if there's open communication, healing is inevitable. But if you're denied communication by a family member, or by a friend, or by a colleague, or by people that you've known for years because you vote a different way, you don't have the opportunity to heal, to present new information, to give different perspectives to the same circumstance, where everyone has an opportunity to identify each other's wounds and needs and grow from and move forward. Some people don't want that. Some people don't want that, and that's not in your control. So what is that message ultimately to you? If you feel judged by someone, if you feel unfairly vilified, what is your human need? For me, I learned it's that I want to be accepted and understood. I want to ultimately be loved, which is a universal core need. So what in my power can I do to call that more in for myself? How can I call in more acceptance and love and understanding to myself? That ultimately are these messages. And so what I'm doing, what I encourage you all to do, is to remind yourself that you are enough, just as you are, complete with flaws, strengths, and weaknesses, and to literally make a choice to remember all the great things you are and that you're doing and that you're achieving, and to not disproportionately focus on the flaws. Remember, triggers don't have power unless we give them the power to trigger us. So it's really messages for us on where we're focusing our energy and where our attention needs some tending to. So take inventory of this year, write down everything that you're proud of, everything that you're grateful for, because gratitude, what you focus on, does expand. Keep blessing what's working, so you're calling in more of that. And if there's areas in your life that are not as great as you would like, it's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to say, I don't have all the answers, but I'm open to them and I do need some assistance. I tell my ladies that I work with, we're not meant to be princesses. We're meant to be queens. And what do queens do? They delegate. It's so okay to delegate. And for men too. It is okay to understand that you want to be purpose-driven, but sometimes you need clarity for those next steps, to be open for your next steps so you can get back into that driver's seat and find your purpose again, find your masculine energy again. So let's all say a prayer together. I do believe that 2022, I think 2021 was far, far worse than 2020, for sure, by leaps and bounds. But I have a feeling 2022 is going to be the game changer. Sometimes the darkest hour is before dawn. I do think people are waking up. I mean, if the approval ratings of our current administration, the polls keep going down. I think they're the lowest they've ever been for decades in terms of a president. And Kamala Harris's ratings are even more abysmal. This is not Fox News polls. These are mainstream media polls. People are seeing the hypocrisy. I mean, with the CDC changing their guidelines every 2 seconds, now literally they're saying it's okay for vaccinated COVID positive nurses to be treating patients in New York. But still, the unvaccinated healthy nurses are not allowed to come in and help. Better to call in the military. Better to call in the sick vaccinated nurses to work. What's that? What's that all about? Governor Newsom has the Super Bowl in LA in a few weeks. Wouldn't you know it? Right before the Super Bowl, he's going to lift the mask mandate because COVID knows after January 15th, it's not going to be as much of a risk. Not to mention that the LAPD police union spokesperson literally said, don't come to LA. We cannot guarantee your safety. Who doesn't know someone personally today in Los Angeles who has not been accosted and mugged? This is a real issue. The gaslighting today is next level, but people are seeing through that. Case in point, if you haven't gotten your copy of The Real Fauci, written by Bobby Kennedy Jr., who is a Democrat. It has had no media attention. It has been attempted to be blocked by every bookstore. I think it's the only Amazon is selling it. Thank goodness. Over 500,000 copies sold, 4,000 5-star reviews, despite these hurdles. This is unprecedented in Amazon's book selling history. So definitely go check it out. You know, other things that drive me crazy. You know, the left mainstream media is so offended by Let's Go Brandon. By the way, Let's Go Brandon! So offended. But we had to endure for years the decapitated Trump jokes and F Donald Trump and the songs and calling him name after name after name. It's frustrating to have conversations with people when you don't feel seen and heard, and they are focused on such one aspect of one story without willing to pull back the lens, to see the whole picture, to see the double standards, to see the disproportionate attention. It's really hard to unite and come together when you are not given the opportunity to actually explain things as they are, not as how they were told for you to look at them. It's very tough. It's very tough. I mean, I'm sure many of us have endured personally the conversation on the disproportional attention of January 6th. You know, millions of people were there with no issue. There were a handful of bad actors that deserved to be arrested. Violence under no circumstances is unacceptable. But to have people who have no history, who haven't even been in the Capitol, who still don't have a trial, are in solitary confinement for the last year, compared to the thousands of bad actors in the BLM rioting with over $2 billion of damage, vandalism, way more deaths. But you had the Harris administration raising money to bail them out of their arrests. Are any of those people in solitary confinement? So that's what's frustrating. You know, the minimizing your pain points to maximize their pain points. How do you unify on that? So it goes back to how we're choosing to lead our own lives. Where is our personal agency? Where is our personal responsibility? And that is really, I think, the difference between a free thinker and someone who just blindly is complying. Because the free thinker is not the victim. They're just going to find another way to keep moving forward. It's the people who just keep complying without question, especially when it hits our children. When is enough going to be enough? So, but I want to leave you guys on some positivity. We've had example after example in these last several months of we the people stepping up. We've seen it in Virginia. We're seeing it in New York. We're seeing it in California. We are seeing it with book sales with The Real Fauci. We are seeing it with CNN. You know, people, they can't keep their anchors, you know, whether it's corruption or soliciting minors. People are seeing through Rachel Maddow has to eat her words with the COVID vaccine. People are waking up to the fact that that the media and the pharmaceuticals don't necessarily have their best interests at heart. So again, what I want you guys to do is take inventory of your year, what is working, what you want to call in for the new year, and know that you're not alone. Know that you're not alone. Find your tribe. Find your community of like-minded people. Bless your allies. I'm so blessed to have some of my closest friends be Christians, be Asians, be Black people, Latino people, gay people. I never would have met if it wasn't for finding our alignment together and standing together on things we will not compromise. We love our country. Be kinder to yourself too. Give your own self a break. You are doing the best you can. It's not about perfection. It's about growth. And when you know better, you do better. So let's call in 2022 with the best energy, defending our liberties, along with many other like-minded Americans, and joining others around the globe who are standing for the same values and human rights that God has given us. God bless each and every one of you. Happy New Year, and God bless America.